give you, Angela, a proper introduction. You are the owner of Cowgirl Creative Coaching. You are also the introvert's guide to LinkedIn, helping people feel awkward about self-promotion, become confident and effective. Your mission is to shift the idea of self-promotion to one of service, which I think is a fantastic approach. You've worked with entrepreneurs and small businesses for 8 years as a LinkedIn consultant, coach, sales trainer, and social media strategist. You consider yourself an accidental entrepreneur, having moved to the Bay Area with the goal of becoming a marketing director with your shiny new MBA. You frequently speak to leadership and other mentorship groups about stepping into the world more intentionally. A former high school rodeo champion and rock climbing guide, always an NFL fan, go Packers, and author of Conversations with Skunks. That sort of sums up your approach in terms of what it's what you are and who you are, not what you do, for sure.
Yeah, and right now I am so disappointed that Aaron Rodgers has COVID.
Yes, I just heard that.
He will not be playing against the Chiefs.
A sad state of affairs.
Oh my God, it's tragic. Anyway, if you're we're on a 7-game winning streak. And then it's like, whoops.
Yeah, best player on the sidelines.
Yeah, and Jordan's great, but this will be his first NFL start.
Fingers crossed. Well, I'll let you take it from here.
Great. So I'm going to dive right into the PowerPoint. And as I said, you guys don't hesitate to take yourselves off mute and ask questions, or to ask your questions in the chat, whichever feels more comfortable to you. So, and could you make me a co-host, Jim?
I can. I just allowed you to
Great. That's
share
awesome.
the screen.
So I'm going to go straight into the PowerPoint. And are you guys seeing my slideshow? Great, great. So the title of this is Build Your Vibrant Business on LinkedIn. You know, COVID is another one of those things that pulled the rug out underneath us. And so we've had to come up with more digital ways to reach our clients. And a lot of us are grossly underdressed and late to that party and scrambling to figure that out. So I hope that today I will shed some light on how you can do that in a more authentic and effective way. So thank you so much for having me. I love talking with small business people, and talking to chambers is a super effective way to talk to a lot of small business owners at the same time. So thank you so much for having me. And my first question for you guys, and if you have an answer that you care to share, please do drop it into the chat. But my biggest question is, why are you on LinkedIn? And I ask this question all the time, and people give me the scariest answers. People are like, well, Angela, you have to be on LinkedIn. And my answer to that would be, no, you don't have to be on LinkedIn. If you're doing it just because that is peer pressure and that's what you have to do, that tells me that you're not doing it intentionally. You're there because you're supposed to, because you have to. And I would invite you to choose to be on LinkedIn and be a little bit more intentional about the way you use LinkedIn. So I'm going to dive back into the PowerPoint, and we'll move on from here and talk a little bit about the benefits. So, do first impressions matter? I mean, just think about people that you meet at networking events. And, there's always that person that, they kind of come off as rude or selfish or loud or whatever it is. You don't want your first impression to be something like that. LinkedIn right now is approaching 780 million members. It's just not going to go away. And with that many members, the competition is absolutely fierce for people's business. And the 74%, this might surprise you, that is how many of your prospects are looking at your LinkedIn profile before they decide to pick up the phone and call you or to send you an email or a message on LinkedIn? 74%. Now, the 50% is the even scarier statistic, because 50% of those people that look at your profile decide not to get a hold of you. 50%. And do you know that you lost somebody before the relationship even began? You don't. There's no way of knowing who looked at your profile, decided they didn't like what they saw, and they're probably never coming back. So you really want to make a first impression right off the bat with your profile. It's a tremendous opportunity. So how will you stand out in that 780 million people on LinkedIn? And how do you really talk about what your specific flavor of whatever it is that you do? Who is it that you serve? That's one of the most important things to clearly state in your profile. And, you know, it's estimated that half the people on LinkedIn have the word coach someplace in their profile. So what is your flavor if you're a coach or a consultant, or there's lots of other things? You know, everybody has a specialty. What is it? Be loud and proud about that. So I tell people that LinkedIn is really easy if you know who you are. So, you know, think about the superheroes that you might be really in love with. I'm in love with Wonder Woman. You don't have to guess what she's all about. You know up front. That is a strong brand. And LinkedIn is really easy if you know who you are as a professional, if you know who you serve, if you know and state clearly what problem it is that you solve, what results you bring, and what are your superpowers. And most of the time, we're not aware of our superpowers because it's just stuff that we do and it's super easy and we take it for granted. So get in touch with that. Ask your besties what they are. And then here's a super frightening question. Have you Googled yourself lately? And the reason I ask this question is because of the way Google Analytics work. I don't care how much you spend in SEO on your website. If you Google your name or your business name, the first thing that's going to pop up will be your LinkedIn profile or your company page. That's generally the way things happen. LinkedIn has preferential treatment as far as the analytics go. So again, golden opportunity for you to get into the, get in front of your ideal client. So your LinkedIn profile is your very best digital business building opportunity. So I did a search and, I used the word coach and I looked mostly just in my network, my first and second connections. And here you go, 6 million. I'm connected to almost 7 million coaches. So, we're not going to vet that many people. So how do you use the profile optimization and search words to get in front of the right people for the right things? So I narrowed it down to relationship coach. I thought that would really narrow things down, and I came up with 233, and I'm not going to look at that many relationship coaches if that's what I'm looking for. So at best, you look at the top 3 to 5. And the one that came up first is actually a friend of mine, and she's really specific about hers. When you look at her profile, you'll find out that she really only coaches men. She does not coach women. So she's very niched in what she does for dating and relationship coaching. So you really want to use a lot of keywords and be very specific about who it is that you are and who would hire you. I mean, that's, your LinkedIn presence is a lot more important than you think. So I'm going to show you 2 profiles. So let's just say that I was looking for life insurance. And the first person that popped up in my network was Brian. So he's got a great background. He's got a big, friendly smile. You know, he's in financial services. So he has the suit and tie and the button down collar. He looks very professional. And then his headline tells me financial services professional helping families with investments, retirement, and life insurance strategies. He doesn't just list his title. You know, nobody cares about your title until they know what you can do for them. So let's look at the other one that popped up and tell me which one of these guys would you hire? No banner, looks very impersonal and cold. And he does just use the business name, Rhythmic Financial and Insurance Solutions. It tells me nothing. And I'm not so sure he looks so approachable in that photo. Yes, he's got the button-down collar, suit and tie, neutral background, but he just doesn't look like the kind of guy that I would pick up the phone and call. And I think it was really just a bad photo day. He probably is a really friendly person, but this is the first impression. So this view, this above the fold view, is where you get 5 seconds to make an impression. And that's where people decide, am I going to look further on this profile or am I going to look for someone else? It's a very simple question. It's a yes or a no. So professional branding and profile optimization are everything on LinkedIn. And I'm just going to tell you honestly, when I talk to people, least sexy thing you could possibly do is work on your own profile. No one wants to do it. But that is where you create your first impression. And I've been talking a lot, so I want to take just a little bit of a break and ask if anybody has any questions so far. I went through all of that very quickly. Any questions from the peanut gallery? No questions? Yes, Cliff.
I just have a comment from what you made earlier on, and the reason why I'm on LinkedIn is for 2 purposes. I'm kind of a service-oriented person, so I find great joy in connecting people. And then 2, I am a repressed journalist and social commentator. And I find LinkedIn a delightful, to comment on a variety of issues. So perhaps I just need to make more calls to more of the people there, because being the office supply guy doesn't resonate much, and I think I just have to, out to contacts personally for business. It's not going to come organically based upon my pithy commentary.
Half hour. Sorry, my son's at the door.
That's all right. Yeah. So anyway, just wanted to share that.
Yeah, well, and it is relationships. So however you form relationships, Cliff, that is the way it works. So if it's through commentary on other things, I was just talking with a group this morning, and commenting on other people's posts is a whole strategy. So who are the influencers in whatever you're interested in, or your field, or, who are the thought leadership people? But there have to be others that you can follow as well. And that really, it increases your visibility, it increases your credibility, and it just gets your name out there. A lot of times you have lots of connections on LinkedIn, but what does that mean? Unless they see that you're being active and have ways to engage with you, that's not a relationship building thing. It's just a dead contact that you have on LinkedIn. So it's like everything. What you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. So, and it also helps to be strategic. You know, don't waste your time with people who are never going to give you a referral, are never going to hire you. And really, it's, you know, it's an interesting engagement, but it's not going to go anywhere. So you really have to be discerning, because it is social media and it can be a rabbit hole, just like other social media can be. So you have to be a little bit selective. Anyway, so let's dive back into the PowerPoint. So let's learn a little bit about this professional branding and profile optimization stuff. So I have a question for you. How much time do you spend on LinkedIn? And if you feel comfortable to share, go ahead and drop that into the chat. I'm really curious. So how much time a day do you spend on LinkedIn? At least 10 minutes a day? Or you log on 2 or 3 times a week? Or whenever you have a few spare minutes? Or once or twice a month or less? So share with us how much time you spend on LinkedIn. So my big questions are, do you want to earn more, convert people easily, have instant credibility, inbound prospects, speaking opportunities, and to be respected for what it is that you do? And if you said yes to any of those, that can be accomplished through your profile on LinkedIn. So professional branding is worth the time and money and investment that you put into it. It's the gift that keeps on giving. If you have a strong brand, if people know who you are and what you stand for, it's so much easier to do business and open doors and get referrals and that sort of thing. So do think about, who are you as a professional brand? I'm a huge NFL fan, you may have guessed by some of the earlier comments. So I'm going to quickly go through the top 3 converting factors of your LinkedIn profile. So I'm going to start at number 3. And number 3 is the first paragraph of your About section. And let me tell you just a little bit about this. You know, most people get LinkedIn completely backwards. It's not about you. It is about what you can do for others first. Then you can talk about your credibility. So that first paragraph of your About section really needs to speak to your ideal client. Now, to speak to your ideal client, you have to know who your ideal client is. So I would spend some time, and you want to think about, who is your entry-level client? For a lot of insurance brokers, it really is life insurance. That is their entry-level. That's what most people are interested in, is getting life insurance. So that's who you're talking to. Those people that you're already doing business with, they already love you. So that's not who you're talking to with your LinkedIn profile. So let's look at an example. So right here is the About section of one of my friends, and I helped her write this. She says that she's leading a revolution. Are you ready to join the team of us who have decided to reclaim our vitality, break the cycle of chronic disease, and create a future that we'll love to live? If so, join me. So clear invitation to come into her world. She also uses statistics, which is really powerful. Did you know that 6 in 10 Americans suffer from chronic disease? And then she uses these little broken hearts. And here's the truth about using color in your LinkedIn profile. Have you noticed that we've become super lazy readers during COVID? We don't have the patience to read much of anything, but we will read to the color. So if somebody puts up a post and they use little emojis and icons, or if you have them in your About section or your headline, people are much more likely to read them. So you want to use whatever's at your disposal. You know, she uses those little broken hearts for some of those grim statistics that she lists about the state of health in the United States. You know, weight gain, memory loss, low sex drive, thinning and sagging skin. These are things that we're all thinking about if you're in the boomer category. And then she says it doesn't have to be this way. Then she gives you a big welcome into her world and talks about what her practice is. But from the get-go, she's really speaking to this audience. And that could be, you know, almost anyone. So the number 2 converting element of your profile is your headline. And as I said before, most people just use their title and nobody really cares yet. What they really want to know is what you can do for me. So let's look at a headline. So here's my friend and client Herb. He says, buying another property is not your only option in a 1031 exchange. I provide alternatives to your run-of-the-mill, like-kind replacement properties. Let's talk about your options. Call to action right there. And then he puts his mobile phone number right in his headline. Great use of that above the fold space. And, you know, here he is in the suit and tie, but here he is being casual, showing something that he's passionate about. Excellent way for us to be able to create an emotional connection to him and what he does. So any questions so far about that? No, you're dying to know what the number 1 converting factor is on your profile. So anybody have any guesses about what the number 1 converting factor is? Go ahead and drop it into the chat if you have an idea of what it might be. And I'm gonna go back to the PowerPoint and reveal the number 1 converting factor for your profile. It is your profile photo. And a lot of people are like, really? it's that simple. And let me tell you the story about this. When LinkedIn turned 10, they wanted to know how people were responding to LinkedIn profiles. So they did this incredibly huge research project called the heat map study. And so they sat 2,000 people down in front of computers and they judged how much time people are spending looking on different things on your profile. And they also had them hooked up to electrodes that determined, you know, brain waves and emotions and things like that. And what they discovered is, seriously, you get 5 seconds with that above the fold view. That's one of the statistics that came out of that. That's all the time they spend deciding yes or no. And most of that time is spent looking at your profile photo. If you don't have a profile photo, a lot of people will tell you, don't be on LinkedIn, because we assume the worst. Is he an axe murderer? You know, we're really judgy. And especially here in the Bay Area, when we're kind of at ground zero for social media, we're super judgy. You know, if you don't have the time or you don't care what your photo is, why should I care about you at all? And I'll tell you a super quick story. When I first moved to the Bay Area 11 years ago, you know, everybody in Marin's got a book, I swear. And I found out that one of my favorite authors lived here in Marin. And she wrote a quintessential book 30 years ago. She was way ahead of her time. And I was like, you know, when I first moved here, I had 52 people in my network. I'm going on 7,000 now. 52 people isn't even a network, in my opinion. It's hard to do much with that many people in your network. You need a lot more numbers than that. Anyway, so, you know, I dilly-dallied. I'm like, should I hit connect or should I not? And it took me about 3 days to hit the connect button. And she wrote back to me right away and she said, oh, Angela, I see that you live here in Marin. Would you care to meet? And I was like, yes, please. So I went to Aroma Cafe and picked a great table and was waiting and waiting and waiting. And about 10 minutes after we were supposed to meet, someone finally came and tapped me on the shoulder. And she said, "Are you Angela?" And I said, "Yes, who are you?" She said, "Well, I'm Linda." And she was 30 years older than her photo on LinkedIn. And on LinkedIn, she had black hair, and standing in front of me, her hair was the whitest white I've ever seen. And I really never recovered from that the entire meeting that we had over coffee. I was so distracted by the fact that I felt deceived. Now, that is not the way to establish trust. She gave me a signed copy of her book in that meeting, and I gave it to somebody else on my way out. That's how bad I felt about how deceived I had been just from her profile photo. And to this day, she hasn't changed it. You know, that was like 9 years ago. And she still has not changed that profile photo. And it's the one she uses for every one of her books in every edition. So your profile photo is the first chance I have to get to know who you are as a person. And if you don't look like your profile photo when we meet in a coffee shop or in your office, it's not going to go well. So you really do want to spend some time and some effort. Now, do you have to pay a professional? I've seen plenty of great profile photos that were done by a son or a husband or a neighbor, you know, against the hedges outside, neutral background, you know, full smile or half smile, whatever's appropriate for you and your industry, and head and shoulders only. And from there, you can get away with an awful lot, but neutral background, friendly and approachable, and head and shoulders, you can get away with a lot within that category. So let's go back to the PowerPoint real quick. And now she's just using a half smile, but she looks so approachable and so friendly. And great suit. You know, I'm going to guess she might be in the financial services or at least something professional. So here's my friend Melissa. Now she's in the creative industry. She's a graphic designer, and she can get away with something that is a lot different. And so I just wanted to show you the range of what's possible and acceptable. You know, doesn't she look like somebody that would be fun to work with? And then she has examples of all of her logos up here on her banner. So she's using that banner space to give you an idea of what her work is like. And for her, the entry-level product usually is a logo. And then from there, it can be lots of other things, but that is usually what people approach her for first. So that's why we decided to use this banner space to really put her best foot forward with her entry-level client. So question number 2 for you guys is, when was the last time you updated your LinkedIn profile? You know, knowing that you were coming to this, did you update yours last week or last month or 3 months ago, 6 months ago, over a year? And if you feel comfortable to do so, please share with us in the chat, you know, how long it's been. You know, and I love answer number 6. You're supposed to update your profile. I have a friend who schedules on her calendar to update her profile every quarter. Because here's the truth about things in the age of COVID is our businesses shift. Our ideal client shifts. What we do, our specialties, all that stuff shifts faster than you think. And I'm not quite as good as Judy. I don't update my profile every quarter, but I try to do it at least once a year and really speak to that ideal client at the entry level. You know, how can I appeal to, what are their challenges and concerns right now? Not last week or last year or before COVID, but right now, what are their concerns? And right now, a lot of people are like, how am I going to survive the holidays in the age of COVID? How am I going to get enough business going And people have had to be super creative, using mailing out things rather than having people pick them up in the store. Lots of very creative ways of doing stuff. And so you just look at other people in your industry. What are they doing to stay on top of business? And what are your clients' main concerns? How can you provide a good or a service to answer that big concern? So I'm going to bop back into the PowerPoint and continue on. So profile optimization is one of the least understood things about LinkedIn. So what is it? It's really LinkedIn's version of SEO. And it's under the category of it's very complicated. So I'm going to try to simplify it as much as I can. So if you go to your skills section and clean up your skills section, that is one of the easiest places to increase your SEO on LinkedIn. The algorithms on LinkedIn are quite a bit different than they are on the rest of the internet, because LinkedIn is kind of an internet inside of the internet, and they have their own way of serving up profiles and content to people in the newsfeed. So you want to think about, what are your top 10 keywords? And what are the search terms that your ideal client, bye Sergey, what are the keywords that your ideal client would use to find you? It's a little bit of reverse engineering, and it really takes some objective thinking to figure out what those search terms would be. I mean, for me, it would definitely probably be LinkedIn coach. It could be business development. It could be small business development. There's lots of different things that people could use. And I have to think of what all of those words are so that in a search, I come up towards the top. So you really want to think about, what are those keywords? Now, there are two places on LinkedIn that are a little bit more heavily weighted for keywords. And those are your headline and the skills section. So those are the first two places that you should clean things up and tighten up your keywords. So if business development is something that you do, you want that in your title, and you want several versions of that in your skills section. The skills section is made up of 50 possible words. Don't use the ones that they prompt, create your own. It's pretty unlimited how long of a string you can put together of keywords. So I would use things like business development on LinkedIn, business development for coaches and consultants, business development for small business. Those are ways to really be specific about what it is that you do. And if you do life insurance, that's great. But if you do life insurance for newly married couples, that's even better. That really tells me what you do. And real estate, my goodness, every real estate agent you run into, of course they can sell you any house. But what is their specialty? Is it first-time home buyers? Is it country living specialty? Is it, luxury? Is it rental property? What is it that there is their specialty? So you really want to think about how you can hone in on getting the right keywords. LinkedIn is a search engine. If anybody remembers Rolodexes, if you can imagine a Rolodex with key terms and searchability, that's what LinkedIn was designed to be. Serving up in a search the right people for the right opportunities. So keywords are super important, and I think a lot of people have forgotten about that aspect of LinkedIn. So really think about what your search terms are and then start to add them. Now, where are the other places that you can put them? I tell people, whatever your top 10 keywords are, and for me, professional branding on LinkedIn is one of them, you want to have those words in about 3 to 5 places. So the headline, the skills section, the about section, in your work experience, possibly in education, and in your featured section. Those are great places to have those keywords, because here's how you win the SEO game is whoever has the most occurrences of the words that the person put into the search string comes up first. That's how you win in SEO. So it's much more important than you think. You know, when I first started my business, I went for 8 years without a website. And LinkedIn was where all of my clients came from, and networking. But LinkedIn is really just an extension of networking. Because what do you usually do? You go to a chamber event, you meet somebody new, you've got their business card, you connect with them on LinkedIn, right? Then what do? That's the big question everybody has. How do you nurture that relationship? How do you leverage that? It requires some input on your part. And I'll get to that in a little bit. But basically, you know, if they have a work anniversary or a birthday, you know, let's admit it, birthdays during COVID have sucked. They're just not much fun. So send a birthday greeting to somebody. You have no idea what that might mean to somebody. And work anniversaries are a big deal when you're a solopreneur or a small business. So send somebody a congratulations. Cliff, you have a question. And take yourself off mute.
Just gonna say, personalize it. Talk about what they're doing or their job or what they mean to you, because so many of these congratulations that come up, it's congrats, Jim, congrats, Jim. It's like one of those Facebook automatic congratulations on birthday things. So, yeah, so always be thoughtful about it.
Yes, excellent advice.
Be complimentary, but don't be brown nosy. And that's a very fine line. You know,
you're right.
I'm always navigating.
And, you know, all of us have kind of gotten sick of the whole automation thing because it feels very impersonal. So you definitely do. You know, some people hate emojis. I love them because at least I know somebody personalized that message if they added an emoji and they gave some thought to it. So in whatever it is that you can say, you know, hey, I was just thinking about you the other week. Congratulations on your work anniversary. How are things going for you? You know, have you successfully pivoted, or, you know, do you want to brainstorm some ideas? There's lots of ways to nurture your network. You know, if you know somebody is, they're on a weight loss program, you know, they're really trying to lose that COVID-20 or whatever it is that they put on, you know, send them an article about that if you see one. You know, send it to them personally through an individual message, you know, not in the news feed. Not everybody wants to know, it wants everyone in the world to know that they're trying to lose weight, but send it personally. So whatever people are interested in, if they're interested in boats, you know, send them something that you found, you know, through all of our random scrolling that you found about boats, whatever it might be. You know, get to know people and then be super personal in the messages that you're sending, just like Cliff said. So I'm going to dive back into the PowerPoint, and we've got a few more things to share, and I'm hoping to have some time for some questions at the end. So from what you've seen so far, you know, what is the first action step that you're going to take with your LinkedIn profile or your messaging? I'm really curious what has hit you so far about what I've said, and there's been so much. So please share in the chat what action steps you're inspired to take because of what you've seen so far. So one thing I want to ask you about your headline, and seriously, this is like your business card on LinkedIn. Will it start a conversation? Does it give me enough information to hire you? Does it name who your audience is? And most of all, is it memorable? Some people will use clever things. There's a fine line for that also, especially considering what your industry might be. If you're an attorney, you might not want to use anything that is too off the cuff or sarcastic or that sort of thing, but you can use things that are clever. So you really want to craft a headline that is going to appeal to your ideal audience. So leveraging your existing network, messaging. A lot of times we send messages to people on LinkedIn and they're not active on LinkedIn. So it really feels like it's a message in a bottle. So how do you get people to respond to your messages? So the very first thing that I like to do is, if somebody connects with me, is to send them a welcome message. And I really think this is important. And here's my standard welcome message. Thank you so much for connecting. I use their first name. Welcome to my network. Now, let me tell you why that is so important. Out of the 780 million people on LinkedIn, they took the time to connect with you. And it's so nice to be acknowledged for that. Another thing that says is that I really value you as a person in my network. And another thing that it says is, I'm not going to pitch you right out of the box. Because there's been more than our share of that happening on LinkedIn. And that has been relaxed a great deal. Over the summer, you could send 100 invitations a day. And so the Spam Fest was on. They've changed that. You can only send 100 invitations a week. And so now those people that used to just spray and pray on LinkedIn are being much more intentional about who they're targeting to invite into their network. So that has changed a great deal. But, I can't tell you how many times I get a response from that welcome message or from my invitation. Because I reach back to everyone that looks at my profile. If someone has looked at my profile, I figure my name has come up in a conversation, or they've seen one of my videos, or somebody said, oh, you're thinking about LinkedIn, you really should talk to Angela. And so if they've looked at my profile, they've taken the time to find me on LinkedIn. I want to know why. So I always reach back and say, thank you so much for looking at my profile. Is there anything I can do to help you professionally? I'm curious what prompted your interest. Connect if you're interested. And I get about an 85% response rate from that. And most people will tell me, oh yes, your name, Laura told me that I should get a hold of you. Or, I just watched one of your videos on your YouTube channel, and I was really curious about who you were. People are so honest when you call them out on that. And, that's where the conversation starts. Those two things are my biggest lead generation tips. Always reach back to people who look at your profile, unless you think they're going to sell you a website, because you probably already made conscious decisions about that, right? You don't need someone in the Philippines to make your next website. So look at their profile and decide, is this somebody I want in my network or not? And then you can send that message. And I use a tool called Auto Text Expander. So for that connection message, that invitation I send, I type in 4 letters and the entire message populates. All I have to do is put in their name or customize it according to what I might know about that person. If I'm doing a speaking engagement and I can say thank you for attending. And if I saw their name in the tiles on the Zoom call. But I try to customize it as much as possible. And then that welcome message really opens the door to conversation. You really start things out. That's how you build relationship. So what I really want you to think about, the mindset shift that I want you to make today and in the coming weeks, is that LinkedIn really is a networking tool. And it's just like talking to somebody in person. Every message that you send, pretend that that person is sitting across from you in a coffee shop. If your messages are one-to-one and real, they're likely going to get a response. And if you don't get a response, A, they're probably not active on LinkedIn, or B, they're not your person. And that's okay too. But be super real about the way you use LinkedIn. And it really just is a conversation, one-to-one. When I do posting, I really try to think of who is this post for? And how would I talk to them if they were standing right in front of me right now? What do I want them to know? So it's really important to be really personal about it. You're not doing things one-to-many, you're doing things one-to-one. And that's probably one of the biggest shifts that people need to make about LinkedIn. And it's hard because it is a social network. It's many, many people. So when people have birthdays and work anniversaries, if they're mentioned in the news, if they just won an award, or, they just shot a video about something, or they've done a personal share, their kids graduating from high school or whatever it is, congratulate them, reach out to them. It's a social network. So be social with your network. And you want to find out who's in your network. And this is something that most people really fail to do. They connect with all these people and then they forget that they're there. So advanced searches, finding out who's in your network. Are any of them part of your ideal audience? So, or do a soft launch of something that you have going on. That's always a big deal. People love to celebrate with you. So if you have a new product or an open house, or, you've just revamped your website, do a soft launch of that and say, hey, everybody, celebrate with me. I just updated my website. Love to have you take a look and give me some feedback. Those kinds of things are much more interesting than some of the other things that you might post or share on LinkedIn. Offer something for free. I'm going to be doing a pop-up workshop next Saturday, which is November 13th, on creating holiday banners for your profile. So we're just going to get together on a Saturday morning, and I'm going to ask people to come with an idea, and we're going to make banners. And I'm going to make as many banners as I possibly can in that hour slot. So offer something for free. That's a great way to increase your visibility and let people know what you're all about. If you have a PDF or a blog or an article that you've written or an infographic, or you offer an initial consultation, those are really great ways to increase your visibility. And just remember, quality is more important than quantity. Of course, it's a numbers game, but getting 3,000 views on a post about snowboarding is probably not going to get you any business. But getting 300 views on a video that has a great tip about LinkedIn, and somebody makes a comment and I answer back and we get into a conversation, now that is quality engagement. So not all of your effort is created equal. Go for the quality over quantity. And my number one lead generation tip I already shared. It's who's viewed your profile. And I told you what my verbiage is for that. If anybody's interested, connect with me on LinkedIn and I'll cut and paste it into a message for you. And so what are you going to do because of everything that you learned today? These webinars and workshops are great, but if you don't do anything about it, it's not so great. So really think about what are your action steps from what you've learned here today. And I want to thank you so much for spending an hour of your time with me. And if you are interested in being on my newsletter, please drop your email into the chat and I'll add you to that. The last one, I talked about Betty Crocker and branding. Did you know that Betty Crocker is a 100-year-old brand this year, and she doesn't even exist? Kind of like Aunt Jemima. There are so many branding lessons in that. So my newsletter is really kind of a quirky thing, and I talk about all sorts of interesting things, but mostly tips and tricks about building your business on LinkedIn. So that's what I have for you today. It's really a rapid fire overview of all the possibilities that you could be using on LinkedIn to build your business. So I hope there was something there for you and your business model. You know, it really is about thinking about what your business model is and what that machinery is that gets people into your pipeline, so that you can turn them into clients, and then using LinkedIn to accelerate that. That's the way I look at business development through LinkedIn, is working with your existing business model and just ramping it up a little bit on the digital platform. So any questions from anybody? We have about 5 minutes left. Yes, Paula.
Angela, thank you very much. It's super helpful. And I'm a LinkedIn neophyte, but I can also think of a number of people who would benefit from this, including our chamber members who, you know, I know want this information and may not have been able to attend today. How do we share your what you do and your message and possibly your services with other people efficiently? Is it this recording? Do you have videos that would distill it? I can think of a number of people who would really benefit.
I would definitely offer up this recording to your membership and talk a little bit about what you personally learned. People in the chamber are going to, you know, yes, the little blurb that I put together is interesting, but your takeaway would be much more interesting to them than that. So, you know, share one or two of your biggest takeaways, Jim and Paula, and, you know, send out an email, invite people to connect with me on LinkedIn, you know, least of all, you know, and if they're curious for more, my newsletter is filled with tips and tricks and updates about things. You know, they've just changed a number of things on LinkedIn. Events have changed if you use that. I don't recommend using events at all, because there's too many misunderstandings about, well, am I signed up for it? Oh no, I have to go to this other site to actually sign up for it. And so people get upset, and that's not a good way to start a business relationship. So I don't even suggest using events. And that's the kind of thing I share in my newsletter is, you know, here's something new on LinkedIn. Here's what it means to small business. And here's what I recommend you do. Either ignore it, or here's how you can use it really well. So I really try to break things down into practical, actionable types of tips. So those would be great ways. I do have a YouTube channel. Oh my gosh, I have 8 masterclasses on my YouTube channel. So pick something that you're interested in. Professional branding, lead generation, lead magnets. I've got a masterclass for that. If you're interested in Clubhouse, there's some 90-minute masterclass on that. If you want to learn a little bit more about pricing, there's a masterclass on that. So do avail yourself of my YouTube channel. All of that stuff is out there for free right now. I will eventually be putting it into really low cost online courses, you know, like $37 a piece. That'll be complete with, you know, a PDF and a checklist and a worksheet and all of that sort of thing. So I'm trying to make all of this super accessible to small businesses, you know, during this really challenging time that we find ourselves in.
For sure. Well, thank you very much. You've given us a ton of actionable and practical stuff to do, which is kind of the goal here, right? Give us some homework to do that's going to make things a little easier for us. That's great.
Okay. Your homework is your headline. That is the greatest impact piece that you have right now. Most bang for your buck is in that 240 characters on your headline. And Paula, if you want to send a worksheet with the follow-up, I'll send that to you so that you can send it to your membership. I have a one-page worksheet for the headline that really kind of breaks it down easily.
Angela, thank you so much. You
Thanks, you
got
guys.
a lot of info in and you're right on
Excellent.
time. Oh, go ahead. Greg.
Awesome.
Just wonder, in the old LinkedIn days, they said only connect with people you know. You know, that's the important part. And I have found, like, I'm protective of my work now, and you kind of got to be cool enough for me to accept your invitation. And I find anybody that has like 12,000 connections, I'm just part of their collection efforts. But I was just wondering what the current thinking is, because I turned into kind of a snob, because you want to join my club? Well, what makes you cool enough? Anyway, sorry.
Well, and that's a super interesting question, Cliff. And this is an important topic because this is a question that everybody has. Who should I let into my network? And what are the best practices around that? And so I encourage everyone that is on LinkedIn intentionally to come up with your own connection strategy. So who do you want in your network? And the way I judge that is I look at their profile. And first of all, I try to determine whether they're a overly active extrovert that's probably going to try to pitch me right out of the box, or, you know, and that's a definite no. But if they're a possible referral partner, you know, if they're a business development coach and they don't do the LinkedIn piece, if they're a website designer, when people update their website, they all of a sudden realize they have to update their LinkedIn profile too. You know, those are possible referral partnerships. Now, if they're a part of a women's mentoring group or women's leadership group, that's a possibility for me to speak. It's a good connection. You know, if they're a potential client, they're a coach, a consultant, a small business, an attorney, a financial services person, I'm definitely going to connect with them. But we all have to come up with what we're comfortable. It's your network. You're in control of your network. So come up with your own criteria for that, so that when you see all those invitations in your inbox, you can say yes, no, and you don't have to agonize about this. And yes, if it's an influencer, I'm going to connect with them. I have a friend and she says, say yes until you have to say no. And what that means on LinkedIn is connect with people, be friendly. It is a social space. It is for networking. But if you don't like their politics or you don't like their philosophy, I act judiciously. I am not afraid to get rid of somebody in my connections, because I definitely would like to err on the side of quality, not quantity. It's not completely a numbers game to me. I think you heard my philosophy. It's quality over quantity. Great question, Cliff. Thanks for all your questions.
Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate you making the time in the middle of the day.
All right, see you all.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye, Angela.